Hi guys, we are going to be working on a Desmos project for the next couple days using some of the things that we learned about transformations. So you're going to be able to use three different equations. One of them is linear. Remember, if I take this equation and I put a negative on it, it's going to flip it. So we're going to use some of those things that we talked about, those skills, moving it up, to start moving our graphs around to create an image, a picture. So the one I picked today is this FedEx logo. You're going to be able to pick whatever logo you want. Keep in mind that the more challenging of an image you pick, the more lenient I'll probably be on how exact it matches. If you pick a really simple image, I'm probably going to expect it to be perfect. So one thing with our straight up and down lines, if I'm making the F for this, is that a vertical line, so straight up and down, is going to be x equals, and if I want, let's say I want my graph to be at -4. Well, -4. So here's my left side of the F right here. I can make it purple if I want to. I'll just worry about colors later, but if I want to say I only want to see it from, let's say, here to here. So -2 to 4, those are my y values I'm looking at. I have to use these curly brackets, and I can say I only want to see my graph from -2 when that's less than or equal to y, less than or equal to 4. And that's going to cut off my graph so that I only see this part that I want to see. So knowing that it ended at 4 right here, if I want a horizontal line right there, I can say y equals 4, and it's going to put it through that point. But I also want to cut this off, so maybe I only want to see it from 1 to 4. If I'm looking at my x values, my parameters need to be referencing x. So if I'm saying I only want to see the x values when its x is greater than -4, the farthest left I want to see is -4, and the farthest right I want to see is -1. So now I've cut off the top part. I can change the color if I want, go to the settings, change them both to purple since the F is purple. So now I've got a piece of that. So I'm going to leave that alone for a second. I might finish that off later. But the other equation that we're going to be able to use, it's not a function, sorry guys, is y squared plus x squared equals 1 squared. This is a circle. We haven't talked about it, but this equation you're going to be able to use, and we can manipulate it just like we do with all of our other equations so that we've been working on. So if I put y in parentheses, we could probably guess what that's going to do if I add or subtract to it. And if I add or subtract to x, thinking about what's going to happen. So let's look at y plus 1, moved it down 1. Y minus 1, moved it up 1. And I'm talking about the center of my circle, moved up 1. If I don't have anything added to y, it is at 0, 0. Nothing's being added to y, nothing's being added to x. But as soon as I add to y, we're moving or subtract from y, I'm moving my circle center up and down. So -2, moved it right 2. +2, move it left 2. Okay? So now my circle's this size. It has 1 as the radius. So I can change that radius to whatever I want. If I want my radius to be 4, that's a little too big for my design, maybe 2. And so I can start to move this around. It might need to be over a little bit more since I don't want it to intersect with the F that I have. So maybe I want to move it right 2, a little too far, right 1, probably good. So now that I have the start of the E, I can set parameters on this as well and make it so that if I look back at my image, I don't want all the circle to be filled in. I need to get rid of this little piece right here. So probably from 0 to -1 for y, negative 1, y. I want to be able to see until 0. Sorry, that's what I want to cut off. So actually I want to go from 0 when y is greater than 0. And then I also want to make another one to say when y is less than or equal to negative 1. And it won't let me do that. So instead, I'm going to have to create this equation again. And you can copy and paste. So I've made the circle again, so it's overlapping my original circle, but now I want to make it so that I don't see when y is less than or greater than negative 1. Or so now I've got this little piece missing, but I also have the piece missing here. So instead, maybe I should use my x value, 2.732, and say I don't want to see anything on the right of it. I only want to see when x is less than 2.732. So now this red circle is only showing me on the left side of it, and on the right I'm seeing the other circle that I had created before. So if I change all of these colors to purple, now my letters are in the purple that I need, and then now I got to start working on creating this E shape. So right here, this would be when y equals 0. I've got a line through the E, but I only want to see it from 0 to 3, when x is 0 to 3. And so now I've only got that line. And again, I can keep going back and forth, changing my colors as I need. And eventually, if you really want to start seeing your grid, you can take off, or your picture, you can take off the grid and the axes so that you can see just your picture, but it helps us to be able to see those. So I would keep them on until you're ready to finish your project. So if I want to go back, make some adjustments to the F here, then I would maybe make a line at x equals negative 1. So now I'm going to start the top part of the F, and so on. So again, it's all about manipulating these equations. The last one that you're going to be able to use is y equals x squared. So remember, if I want to maybe use this U shape as the center of my E, maybe I take x squared, and if I want it to be an upside down, because I really want to use this part of our parabola for the E, I might change that to negative so it flips it upside down. But now if I want, let's say, my parabola, this vertex point, to be right here at the point 1, 1, then I'm going to need to make changes to x in the parentheses and changes to y. If I add 1 on the outside, it moved it up to 1, but now I have to also take away 1 so that it moves it over. That's probably not enough, so maybe 1.5, 1.25, wherever I want this to be. So now I only want to see from 0.5 to 1.25 for y. So I'm going to use those parameters again with my curly brackets and say I'm going to limit y from only when y is greater than or equal to 0.5. And so now it only shows that part of the parabola. So then to finish off this part of my E, I can make a horizontal line, which again is y equals, and this one is at 0.5. So now I've made my line through there. And if I look at where this point ends on my green line here that I have for the E, it looks like I only want to see from the x values 0.15 or 1.4 to 1.85. So from when x is 0.15, I believe is what I said, and then 0.85. Oh, 1.85. So now I've got my center. And again, I can keep going back to this edit list and making those purple if that's what color I'm using, and so on. All right, so hopefully this gives you an idea, something to reference as how can I make those parameters? What equations can I use? I can use a parabola, I can use a straight line, linear, or I can use a vertical line, a horizontal line, and we can also now use a circle. And again, it acts the same way as our transformations we've done with all of those other functions. So, good luck.